Okay, so once again, our standard disclaimer, uh, starting with good morning, happy Friday, and this call is being recorded, and we will place these recording on our YouTube channel um, to access, by public. So if you don't want to be recorded, you may want to drop off now. Okay, so our topic of today is Microsoft Build updates, Azure updates from Microsoft Build 2021. So unless until kind of you are living in a cave or something, I think you're aware that this week there was Microsoft Premier Conference for Developers, Microsoft Build. As you know, we have two conferences. One is Ignite, which is focused on broader IT audience, and then we have the Microsoft Build, which is focused on um, primarily the developer audience. And there were some very exciting updates, and I'm going to cover some of those updates in this particular session. So let's start. First is announcement of Azure Application Services. Uh, on surface, it's more look like a rebranding. Yes. So what we're declaring, um, these are the set of services, app service, functions, logic apps, API management, event grid, which are used by developers to build, serverless as well as web application, cloud native application, basically. So I think everybody knows like app service for building web and APIs, function for your serverless, logic apps for creating workflows in the cloud, API management is your API gateway, and finally, event grid is your event broker. The big uh, thing here is that now you can run these services anywhere. You don't have to run them in Azure. You can run them anywhere with the power of Kubernetes and Azure Arc. So this is what we are talking about. If you have a Kubernetes cluster running on-prem in any other cloud or rival cloud, you can set up Azure Arc, and this is currently in preview, public preview. Please keep in mind you have to do some setup on those clusters, basically some set up some configuration, and then you should be able to run these services on that particular instance of Kubernetes. Okay, and you can run this, and it has to be Arc enabled. Just keep in mind. So this is once again, Azure Arc basically allows you to manage on-prem resources through a single pane of glass, which is Azure Portal. There are Azure Arc for virtual machines, but and then Azure Arc for Kubernetes, there's Azure Arc for data services as well. And this is taking it to the next level where now you can run these app services, application services on Azure Arc as well. Okay, so I think this is a very, very big announcement. And please take a look at these resources. And probably we will do an Azure Power Lunch session just specifically focused on this topic with a deep dive and look at um, like how you can set it up and um, you know run this thing. The advantage here is that as you are deploying your application, if you're targeting Azure and Azure App Service, and let's say that you have to deploy application on your private cloud, you don't have to worry about moving away from app services or taking a different approach. You can still deploy app services as long as you are running Kubernetes cluster and you can deploy it on top of it. So basically, you can follow the same path that you're using with Azure without compromising ease of use and all those things when you are taking advantage of, I mean, when you take advantage of this technology. So, any questions on that? So, let's move on. And then another bit of rebranding and some more updates, which is Azure Applied AI Services. So, it seems like Microsoft is kind of uh, doing a bit of categorization in terms of that. Azure Applied AI Services, these are the services which are uh, and once again, this is uh, yes, some new features, but at the same time, rebranding of the existing services. These are the services which provide full-fledged solutions. So they take advantage of underlying Azure Cognitive Services. One example is Azure Cognitive Search, where you have data that can come from databases, that can come from documents, and you can extract data from like images using Azure Cognitive Services. You can enrich it, and then you can allow application to search that data. That's another thing. Then you have Azure Video Analyzer, which takes advantage of edge services as well as Azure AI and ML services to analyze a kind of a video stream, like what's going on there. So that's another thing that's very kind of uh, that's another Azure Applied AI service. So more for recategorization, and then you have the core cognitive services, which are basically let me just go down here. Core cognitive services, which talks about vision, uh, you know, vision services. You have speech, you have language. So these are the core services, and there are some updates there as well. Like you can more focus on health, where you can search health-specific information. Medical insights from a document. Okay, that's that's a big update, especially considering that we are living in the age of COVID, dealing with the pandemic. Azure Machine Learning Private Endpoints. To me, this is very interesting, and kind of once again, it's on the same track where making it easier for end consumer to take advantage of the cloud without dealing with the complexities. So you have data scientists who want to run machine learning model instead of setting up cluster and all that. You can use these machine learning managed endpoints, and all the infrastructure is provisioned for you behind the scene. You get an endpoint where you can run your models and get results. You can monitor, you can do, and basically you can set up VM SKUs and all that behind the scene. You don't have to do, anything about setting up the cluster and all the deal with any complexities. So all of that is taken care of by the platform behind the scene. So basically that makes things easier for you. Um, and the second thing is PyTorch. So this is a deep learning framework based on Python, open source framework. Microsoft is providing the enterprise support program. This is a big announcement. Take a look at it. It's in the resources. So this is basically we are targeting, making life easier for data scientists so they can take advantage of these offerings without worrying about all the complexities that goes with it. And probably, you know, I will, kind of get some uh, uh, data and AI team members of mine or somebody from the product team, hopefully, to talk more deeply about it, or more details about it in this session, in a later session sometime. You know, this is not my area of expertise, so I don't want to confuse people. Um, okay. Any questions? Okay, so this is there are the links, the blog, all that. So take a look at it. Oh, one of my favorite database, Cosmos DB. Just a quick level set. It's Microsoft NoSQL database, allows you to develop app. It's a polyglot, so it supports multiple ways that APIs, like you can have MongoDB, have support for MongoDB API, of course, Core SQL. That's the basic one, and you can um, scale it for very large workload. You can do global distribution, fully managed. You don't have to worry about any kind of setting up infrastructure or anything. Fully pass. Okay. What So a couple of things that have gone GA serverless. So if you have workloads which are mostly there is no activity, they're active certain amount, certain parts of a day or certain um, time in a month, serverless. That's a good fit because it's only built on usage. You don't have to pay for the dedicated RU. That's a uh, good fit for that. Then you have the uh, expanded free tier. So as you know that when you get a free Azure subscription, there's a free tier included in that in the Cosmos DB. So there are more features into that. So if you are playing with it, you um, can take advantage of it. And then Linux emulator is in public preview. This is one of the most asked feature. Customers have been asking how I can have an emulator that I can run on my local environment for debugging, for development, without having to spend RUs, while I'm testing my application. This is now in public preview. Definitely, I think that's another area where maybe another, dedicated power lunch session um, is in order to cover some of the enhancements in this area. But this was one of the most asked feature. A emulator. So this is available now. It's a Linux emulator. You can run it on a Linux VM, and basically you can use it to test your application while in depth test environments. So okay, let's move on. And then there are some other feature. If you know, one of the um, highly requested feature was role-based access control. Role-based access control has gone GA for Core SQL API. Okay, it has gone GA, so you can take advantage of it. And then we have the always encrypted. This is encryption not on the side of um, the server or of the service. This is on the side of the client. So this is a client side encryption. So it will encrypt all your data before it is stored in the cloud. So let's say that you don't want to use CMK, or you are using CMK, but you want to add another level of encryption, you can take advantage of it. This is currently in public preview. Okay. There's another feature that has gone in public preview is integrated cache, which allows you to store most commonly used query. So basically, this will save RUs. So if you have queries that are most commonly used, you can take advantage of this cache to, of course, name suggests, caching those queries, and then at the same time, you can save the RUs that may have been required to do the queries if you actually hit the database. Okay, so that's advantage. I mean, pretty straightforward, but this is in public preview. Another thing that is in what we call like a private preview, or you have to sign up to get into that, is partial document update. So if you have large documents, you don't want to send them back, you can do partial document updates. This is for the scenario where you want to increase the latency, reduce the network payload. That's where it comes into picture. With basically updating a document without requiring the full replacement of the document itself. Okay, so that's that. Any questions?
Uh, Navid,
Yes, go
can
ahead.
you go back to the previous slide, please?
Yes, yes, yes.
The previous one.
Oh, sorry. This one?
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm just checking the updates from Cosmos DB. I mean, looks like most of them are actually focused more on a SQL API, but not much updates on MongoDB API. I could actually see
Yeah.
since. Yeah, any
So
idea why so focused on SQL API and not on either Mongo or Graph
yeah,
APIs?
I mean, okay, I can't answer that. I, you know, I'm not sure what is the reason, but based on my guesses, Core SQL was the API which was introduced from the beginning. It is this API which is used by most of the applications. So most of the applications in so that's I think that's maybe they're thinking of, okay, address this one first as most of the applications are using Core SQL. So that's my guesses. Um, so
Okay. I mean, the main intention is there are certain limitations on Mongo API. So, I mean, for most of the customers who have been migrating from MongoDB on premises, their only option is for lift and shift is actually Mongo API here in Cosmos DB. And it has some broad limitations like 60-second timeout and limitations on indexes. So which has been very problematic for the customers actually to move their workloads to Cosmos DB. So that's where my question actually came up.
well, I
Yeah,
think that's a broader migration question. So yeah, sure, we can take it offline. Yeah,
sure, sure,
I
sure.
mean,
Thank you, thank you. Naveen.
definitely, yeah, I
Yeah,
agree. Yeah, I mean that's, and there's always gonna be, because this is as a polyglot, it's gonna um, support the most commonly used features of an interface. At the same time, there may be some customer who are using, those who come in those edge cases, or who need more than what is offered by the product. So yeah, that's probably a more of a broader migration question. So let's talk about it
sure, sure.
offline.
Thank you.
So my PostgreSQL and MySQL. First of all, now flexible server will be included in a free offer. So we have the free Azure for a certain time, you know, uh, flexible server will be included in that. And the second one I'm really excited about is the Postgres hyperscale basic tier. So one thing is, if you are developing against the hyperscale standard tier, it can be very expensive. Let's say you're just testing, you're not, you just kind of building your application. You don't want to go with the um, non-hyperscale, because you just want to make sure that you are testing against the actual thing that you're going to do. This basic tier runs everything from a single node, where standard tier may require two, or I mean, kind of a one management node, and kind of two database nodes. So basically, instead of having two or three nodes, you can run everything from a single node. So that, and everything else is the same. So with that, you can you can develop against the basic hyperscale without paying the cost of a standard tier when you use this basic tier. Okay. PostgreSQL 13 is now available on hyperscale as well. And finally, Azure Defender is available for for these databases. This is kind of a quick diagram. As you can see, it can check anomalies, brute force attacks, things like that. So you can be assured that you are monitoring these databases for any, um, kind of attempts from bad actors to hack your database. Okay. Oh, finally, very interesting enhancement on the SQL side. It now supports a ledger. So basically, power of blockchain comes to SQL. So the concept of ledger is, it keeps track of everything. So let's say, I mean, very simple example. Let's say that you have a row. It has name of the person, age of the person, and then salary of the person, and you updated the salary. A normal update will be updated. That's it. In the ledger fashion, basically, an update will be made, but the original row will go into a what we call a ledger log. So in that, what will happen is you have a track of all these changes. This is very important in the scenario where you need to guarantee data integrity. Okay, so that's so I think this is the picture. So as you can see here, you have the data goes into a history table. So any row that you modify, it goes just for simple example, it goes to a history table. So you can see everything that happens. So if somebody maliciously try to change something and try to cover their steps, they cannot do it because everything is tracked in this ledger. This is now available as a part of Azure SQL. Any questions? Okay, some updates on the Azure Communication Services. As you know, Azure Communication Services are the underlying platform on which Teams is built on. If you don't like the Teams UI, yeah, ACS is available now. Write your own UI. That's what I say. So it provides you capabilities like chat, voice and video calling, telephony, SMS, and that's where I mean, you can use these API and enrich your application. A few other things as well. There are some sessions that you want to take advantage of. Um, okay. This one, there's a UI library available as well now, so you can build kind of these control without, um, you know, kind of writing from scratch. So you can take these control, both supports React and Node.js, and it's also a part of Windows SDK. So you have, universal Windows platform and those applications that you can take advantage of. Call recording is available as well. So yeah, so I think this is kind of a more of a recap. There are some enhancements on certain features as this thing has gone GA, and you will see some of the things. Basically making the life easier for developers where they want to take advantage of these features. So quickly, Java and Azure. Azure, this is a big thing. We have uh, built, now the big announcement is OpenJDK. So we have now OpenJDK from Microsoft, you know. So this is an OpenJDK distribution that is from Microsoft. So available for anyone. If you want to take advantage of it, you can use it. These are the two enhancements. Now you can run Java Enterprise Edition on Azure. You can add Red Hat as well as IBM. Both are available. I think one of them is announced and one of them is available. You have to check. I think IBM one is available. Red Hat is just announced. So this allows you to a popular server like JBoss and WebSphere on Azure Virtual Machine. Once again, these are jointly supported. This is very important. This is jointly supported, developed and supported by Microsoft. And in the case of JBoss, Red Hat. In the case of IBM, WebSphere in the case of IBM. So finally, let's focus on some of the dev stuff. Um, if you're not aware, and here's the thing, um, I have been developing in .NET. I love C Sharp, so this is kind of my favorite announcements. .NET 6, which is basically an effort to combine all .NET frameworks into one. Preview 4 is announced. This has the universal multi-platform UI, where you can write your UI at one platform and deploy it anywhere. So that's the goal of that, and it has supports for uh, Blazor hybrid desktop apps and things like that. So um, that is enhancing. I'm not sure what is the um, when they're going to be releasing it, but that's big thing. I mean, that's the goal of .NET 6 to combine all the .NET frameworks into one with UI, as well as uh, console, web, and microservices apps and all. Visual Studio 2019 16.10, that's available. I installed it yesterday. Took a few minutes. So okay, so this is the 64-bit preview, the first preview of VS 2022, which is the next edition of Visual Studio that is available if you want to take advantage of it. And once again, this is the uh, ability to build Teams application, Teams apps. That toolkit is now a part of Visual Studio family. So, and Power Platform. Probably we may have need a separate section to discuss about Power Platform. What are some of the enhancements that have been made? Some ways to, um, just using some very interesting ways through AI to write code. So this is now Visual Studio extensions are for Power Platform are now available for you to write Power Platform based application in Visual Studio. Uh, Yeah, so this is once again that I was talking about. So you can use GPT-3 where you can basically type in and it will provide you the type in your requirement and it will provide you the best way or best component to use or how you can kind of you know bring that idea to life. That's what it's all about. As I said, this is one of the thing that is um, kind of democratizing app development. So instead of just developers doing development, everybody join and start developing these applications. And that's one thing that is. And by the way, yes, I work for Microsoft, but that's kind of my opinion, independent of my employer. That one thing that Microsoft did um, is democratize development with Windows, the .NET, and with this uh, Power Framework. That's another step where you don't have to be a hardcore developer. I mean, as long as you have ideas, as long as you capability that you can write a Excel script, you should be able to develop apps. You should be able to your bring life to your ideas, and bring them to people, uh, taking advantage of this power framework. So, and this last one, I think this is basically bringing security center integration with GitHub, where you can see any vulnerabilities. You can, do a vulnerability scanning in your CI/CD pipeline, and you can see the result on the security center. That's pretty much it, folks. I hope you um, kind of find this useful. And once again, all the sessions are available on demand on the build page. So take a look at it. There's a lot of useful information there. So any questions? You have one. You're right on time. Okay. Thank you, and hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. And hope to see everyone next week for another session of Azure Power Lunch.